Hello, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. The images that I'm going to be showing you behind me are all things that I have designed and made in recent years. Another thing they all have in common is that they're all made out of materials that had a previous life. They're reclaimed materials, and they're from the region where I made them. So you're going to see images of my art, of buildings I've designed and made, of installations, and I may interrupt myself every once in a while just to describe the image. This is a sound diffusion device that I invented. I used 60,000 wine corks to make it. And experiences. I believe the utilization of artistic practices in my process of designing and making buildings has the ability to solve big problems. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes sharing with you some of my findings, and I think some of my findings could help you in your pursuits. I am dedicated to the preservation of natural landscapes free of human development. I have experienced my clearest thinking and have tapped into a great energy source in these places. I do not want these natural environments to become a part of our capitalist society and made into product. I believe through creativity, innovation, and science, we can provide for our human needs without extracting more resources from our natural ecosystems. I have been activating new ways to make buildings that are free from deforestation, mining, and fossil fuel extraction. I intend to preserve natural places through this process. Our global lifestyle patterns are jeopardizing the health of all future generations. I founded my company 12 years ago with the intent to lower the embodied energy of the making and operating of buildings as a response to this. Let me define embodied energy. Embodied energy is defined as the commercial energy, fossil fuels, nuclear, etc., that's used in the work to make any product, bring it to market, and dispose it. Embodied energy is an accounting methodology which aims to find the sum total of the energy necessary for an entire product's life cycle. This life cycle includes material extraction, transport, manufacturing, assembly, installation, disassembly, deconstruction, and/or decomposition. Right now, in the United States alone, our buildings account for 70% of our electricity use. Our buildings also here in the US account for 2/3 of all municipal waste. There are buildings and infrastructure constantly being torn down every single day. The current system of construction and demolition industry has a very high level of embodied energy. It goes something like this. The building is demolished. The materials are transported. They gather in our landfills, or they get melted or chopped for recycling. They get transported again. They go back into manufacturing. They get transported again. They go to distribution or the marketplace. They get transported again. Then they're put to use. There's a lot of transportation in this process, and some of these legs of transportation are across country or even overseas. So, how am I lowering the embodied energy of these buildings? First thing I'm doing is utilizing existing infrastructure. So our cities are full of buildings that are empty or disused. So many of these buildings are already tied into the city's existing infrastructure of public transportation, municipal waste systems, and development. We then improve the thermal shell of the building, and we open the building up to the sun. Improving these two things results in lower operational energy use, of non-renewable fuels. Reclaiming these buildings replaces the need to create new buildings in natural areas. We need to preserve our land to make oxygen, clean the air, support biodiversity, have local agriculture, and places of wonder. We then, actually let me talk about this slide. I was just here 3 days ago, that's me. And this is a 1 million square foot building being demolished right now in Colorado Springs. 1 million square feet, full of stuff. 3/4 of it's going to end up in the landfill. We then recondition these buildings with reclaimed and regional materials. I had to create my own process of doing this. There wasn't a precedent when I started my company 12 years ago. So I have established relationships with scavengers, large demolition companies, and I ride my bike a lot. And I ride my bike in all the cities that I do work in, and I look for materials. I take new routes to get places, and I found an amazing abundance of materials by doing that. Our heavy use of regional reclaimed materials to structurally build our projects greatly reduces the energy consumption of our building process and the need for resource extraction. Our primary material choice of reclaimed materials brings our material transportation energy next to zero. And most of these materials have off-gas long ago. I look for materials that have little to no market value, ones that are displaced and without perceived use. I then utilize an integrated systems design process to reuse these materials as primary building materials to serve a new function. Simplicity is our ally in this pursuit. Minimize material usage, embellish the material's intrinsic properties, repetition, and informed composition. My projects proclaim a what you see is what you get aesthetic. We avoid cladding and layering of materials by using materials in a raw state with a high level of attention on the detailing and how these materials come together. This honesty of materials tells the truth and allows the observer to see the whole with their senses wide open. So what are these materials I'm using? Well, in recent projects, we made a very large solar screen for a downtown Denver building out of railroad tracks from the 1940s. We took 1930s bowling alley lanes and made structural mezzanine floors out of them. We took 1960s public utility gas pipe and used them as structural posts. We've taken 1980s pallet racks and used them as primary building structure. We then provide energy efficient systems and integrated renewable energy systems into every project. We utilize systems thinking and biomimicry to arrive at simple solutions that work with the site and the natural cycles present. Our process of designing buildings that utilize the sun to light, heat, and create energy dramatically lowers the operational energy of our projects and reduces their usage of fossil fuels to a minimum. We also, another way we're reducing the embodied energy of our projects is just by our company culture. We all ride bikes, we eat regional food, we've purchased biodiesel trucks that run our company, and we have a zero waste studio and workplace. Through intentional design, we're able to make connections between humans and the natural cycles around them. Right now, Americans are spending 90% of their day indoors. When I heard that, I recognized the need for buildings to foster these connections. We make connections to the cycles of the sun and seasons through the orientation and envelope of the building. We enframe views of natural cycles through aperture. We bring these natural cycles into the building. We use abstraction to express the organic. Creating connections between humans and nature through the inbuilt environment not only increases health to humans, but also fosters appreciation for nature and encourages humans to make healthy choices. For example, All of our projects include opening the space to natural daylighting possibilities. Keeping internal circadian rhythms in response to the sun's daily cycle in order is an important factor in human health. Full spectrum light of the sun makes people happier, less sick days, and more productive. I am living a life where natural systems are the primary information source for my lifestyle, my art, and my architectural practice. I am using this information to create buildings that connect the inhabitants to the natural world. Art and the creative process is critical to my process. By relying on the creative process to see discarded materials that most people might consider trash in a new way, we're able to assign refresh meaning to these materials and construct them into something beautiful for the end user. Again, using creativity and an aptitude for art, spaces are created to inspire the inhabitants with demonstrated results of increasing productivity and overall satisfaction in the live or workplace. So the principles of art that have been most influential on my practice and my way of processing things are the following. Number one is independence. With independence, I take the time to think about solutions and problems without having concerns for money or a client or even my own survival. Taking true independence when you think and you problem solve. Only for the experience and only to capture an experience. I don't have any parent company determining where my efforts are spent, and it allows new ideas without an authority sensibilities weighing in. Number two is experimentation. When trying to make tangible an abstract idea, the use of experimentation is critical. I have been working on a conceptual level. To preserve the concept, I must experiment to make it realized in its purest form. A genuine concept is often diluted when manifest through existing processes. Number three is magic. To experience the other world, to express interconnections of all things. Magic is the power to turn one thing into another. Number four, cross-disciplinary thinking. Before acquiring a master's degree in architecture at the University of Colorado, Denver, I attended graduate school at the University of California at Berkeley. And I studied fine arts and environmental biology there. I had a theorist who was a professor of mine by the name of Horst Rittel. And he came up with this term called wicked design problem. It's a real term, it's not. And a wicked design problem is a planning problem that is complex, interdependent on many variables, ill-defined, and hard to solve. Wikipedia cites a problem whose solution requires a great number of people to change their mindsets and behaviors likely to be a wicked design problem. This concept is a central driver in my work. What Rittel discovered in his 40 years of studying wicked design problems, and his main problem that he was trying to solve was terrorism as a design problem. But in his 40 years, what he discovered is that viable solutions come out of thorough and intense cross-disciplinary research with an acute understanding of natural cycles. The key, Rittel articulated, is in relying on intuition out of those understandings. In other words, a solution is best reached by educated intuition and cross-disciplinary thinking. Well, I believe our domestic energy problems are certainly a wicked problem. And I've been using a cross-disciplinary thinking process to make solutions. So enough of this book. So I'm going to give you an example. Uh-oh, I'm out of time almost. Is that true? We were tasked with converting this diesel engine repair garage into a Class A manufacturing, design, assembly, programming, sales for a laser microscope company. And this building sat fallow for 20 years, built in 1950. That's the inside. We turned it into this. And we turned it into this with 100% reclaimed materials, and all within 5 miles from the site. So what we built it out, what you're seeing is the glass, is the hockey glass from the Pepsi Center. They have to retire it every 5 years. That's all these sliding walls. The floors are the floors of railroad boxcars. The most beautiful hard maple you can imagine. The structure of the whole inside of the building we made out of reclaimed pallet racks that came out of an abandoned manufacturing site. We often have to invent to create these systems. And on this one, I was getting tons of calls from new students getting out of school wanting work. And I said, I don't have any design work, but I do have work of you guys taking 40,000 clear plastic water bottles, taking the labels off, cutting them up, and cleaning them. Because I invented a wall system. And this wall system takes these bottles and encapsulates them in plastic, and it creates a daylighting wall that also has a 3 times the R value of typical glass, and is about 1/3 the cost of glass. And so it was really everything in sort of my life kind of came together to make that invention. I was seeing all these plastic water bottles in the trash. They are downcycled, they're not very recyclable. And I was seeing all these students needing work, so I needed to create something that had a lot of labor to it. And our client had a very lean budget. They're a startup company, there's 10 of them in Denver, and I wanted to make the best facility I could for them. Again, another view of sort of this mezzanine zone we made. We basically insulated the building, high efficiency systems, and the company has now been in for 6 months, and the owners have revealed to me that it has been very successful. It's been very successful for their workers in terms of less sick days and just overall contentment and happiness. And as a branding piece for the company, they said it's been absolutely incredible. People really want to come to their building now and visit them. I guess I'm not done with this quite yet. It's a very simple quote. You'd think I could memorize this. John Muir once said, "The power of imagination makes us infinite."